You know what there definitely hasn't been enough of lately? Handheld gaming devices. So yippee hooray for the Ayaneo 2S, which seems to have been launched about 5 minutes after I finished my Ayaneo 2 review. And this bad boy is one of the most powerful gaming handhelds around, taking on Asus's ROG Ally, which itself only just launched, courtesy of a super powered AMD Ryzen 7000 series processor. And like that ROG Ally, you've also got a crisp Full HD display, and the Ayaneo 2S is absolutely packed to the tits with gaming features. So it's time for some hot unboxing and review action, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now at the time I shot this video, the Ayaneo 2S has just started shipping. It'll cost you from around $1,000 US, about the same number in GBPs. And what do you actually get in the box besides the Ayaneo 2S console? And all the various accessories are packed away in neat little boxes. You've got yourself a pretty bloody beefy 100 watt power adapter, which as you can see there can charge up to 4 things at once via 2 USB-C ports and a pair of USB-A ports. And as you can see there, it is a 2-pin adapter, but you do have various sort of charging heads, so it'll work in basically any country around the world. And you've also got a pair of USB-A to USB-C adapters and a USB-C cable. And you've also got the usual quick start guide shenanigans and some tools in case you want to rip open the Ayaneo 2S, perform some little DIY upgrades. And that right there is everything you'll find inside of the Ayaneo 2S box. So let's crack on and check out the console. So let's begin with the design, and if you own an Ayaneo 2, you're probably getting some serious deja vu about now. Like seriously, if I'd close my eyes and shuffle this pair, I'd really struggle to tell which one was which. It's the Ayaneo 2S, bit of a beefster to say the least, just like the original. 667 grams, it is quite a weighty, hefty bugger. And got a serious bit of girth on the go as well. So if you want something that's light and breezy, that's easy to carry around, chuck in your hand luggage, take wherever you go, you might want to look at the Ayaneo Air Plus or Pro, which I recently reviewed. Or of course the Nintendo Switch OLED. This thing is just as big and heavy as the Steam Deck. This of course is the white model. You can also grab the Ayaneo 2S in black. And there are some limited edition models as well, something to do with ducks. Not really sure what's going on there, to be honest. But yeah, not much to note as far as the design goes. It's once again an all glass front. The only bits that aren't glass are these little sections surrounding the controls. This glass is apparently once again impact resistant and scratch resistant. I certainly had no issues with the Ayaneo 2 on that front. And it's a lovely clean finish, no screws, no other blemishes. Just looks really neat and tidy. And you've got 3 USB ports in total, a pair up top and then 1 down below. 2 of them are USB 4, and then you've got a USB 3.2 for data transfer. Would be handy if they actually had some sort of markings or labeling on them, but hey ho. Up top here you've also got volume controls, you've got your power button with integrated fingerprint sensor, and you've got a couple of shortcut buttons. And down below you'll find a headphone jack and also a memory card slot. So let's get this thing powered up. And as I say, logging into the Ayaneo 2S nice and easy, courtesy of that fingerprint sensor. The actual software setup on the Ayaneo 2S, basically identical to the old Ayaneo 2 and all of the other Ayaneos that I've tested. Once again, full on Windows 11 action, but you do have that iSpace shenanigans as well. So this acts as a gaming hub. You've got fast access to all the games you've installed on the console, despite the fact that they're on different platforms. It's got a bit of Steam, bit of Epic Games, bit of Game Pass. And in here you can also piddle about with all of the gaming settings. Gotta say though, not the most user-friendly experience in the world. It certainly took me a good long while to learn my way around this UI and all of the various features. It's pretty dense stuff, but certainly comprehensive. I can't accuse it of not being comprehensive. So for instance, head to this master controller section and you can fully customize the joystick controls, the sensitivity, the dead zones. You can set up those custom shortcut buttons. You can also change up the RGB lighting effects for the thumbsticks. Choose from a variety of effects, basically turn the Ayaneo 2S into a mini disco. Anyway, you get the general gist, but yeah, if you like to fully customize your devices, well, you'll be in heaven here. One of my only complaints with iSpace is it doesn't do a very good job of storage management. It doesn't actually tell you how big any of your games are, for instance. If you do find that storage is often an issue for you on these devices, you can deck out the Ayaneo 2S with up to 4 terabytes of storage. I've got the 2 terabyte option here. Base level is 512 gigs. And then of course you've got that card slot down below which supports data transfer of up to 300 megabytes per second. And then there's the shortcuts bar, which you can pop up onto screen at any point with a quick poke of this button here. This is pretty handy if you want to quickly change up the screen brightness, the screen resolution, and also for dancing between the various different performance modes. As you can see, I've just got it on power saving as I'm just demoing the UI right now. If you're going to get stuck into a AAA title, you want to switch that up to either the game mode or the pro mode, where you can manually configure the wattage, basically ramp it all the way up to the maximum volume of 33. Now, just like the original Ayaneo 2, the Ayaneo 2S sports a 7-inch touchscreen. Sadly, not OLED tech. That is something that's still pretty bloody rare on gaming handhelds, outside of the Switch OLED, of course. But all the same, I have few complaints. It's once again a 1920 by 1200 pixel resolution, so nice and crisp. Certainly noticeably sharper than the Steam Deck's display, and comparable to the ROG Ally. Some pretty crisp contrast despite the fact that it is IPS tech. Black, so reasonably black, not just a kind of murky grey. I certainly had no issues seeing what was going on in games like Returnal, where it's generally quite murky fare. However, while that screen is reasonably bright when you max it out, unfortunately, if you are in direct sunlight or anything, you've got no chance whatsoever. You'll have to seek out shade. And it does max out at 60Hz refresh. If you want some of those 120Hz visuals, you'll have to look to the Asus ROG Ally instead. But to be honest, gaming handhelds aren't really set up to take full advantage of that sort of refresh rate anyway. And no real changes on the audio front either. It's once again a stereo speaker setup here on the Ayaneo 2S. Both of those speakers downward firing. I found that I never muffled these accidentally, no matter what kind of weird way I was clutching the Ayaneo 2S. And certainly on the top volume, they pump out some pretty powerful audio. Powerfully loud at least. It is still quite tinny. Not an ideal way to enjoy that kick-ass soundtrack in Doom Eternal, for instance. And yes, certainly if you're going to get some online multiplayer shooty shenanigans on the go, you'll want to plug in some headphones. That said, it is perfectly possible to scream at your teammates without using a headset, because the Ayaneo 2S does have a pair of built-in mics. But yeah, when it comes to upgrades, it's the performance that's had all the love here on the 2S versus the older Ayaneo 2. That AMD Ryzen 7 6800U has been swapped out for a 7840U with an integrated Radeon 780M GPU. And the RAM selection has now expanded as well. You've got a 64GB model joining the 16 and 32GB options. Mine right here is the 32GB. And as before, you've got the option of slapping on an external GPU as well, get some Razer Core X action on the go or whatever. But for the purposes of this review, I just approached the Ayaneo 2S as a handheld gaming console, keeping it nice and raw and pure and simple. And for all of the benchmarking and my gaming, I did stick the Ayaneo 2S on that Pro mode at 33 watts to max it out, to really take it to the limit, push it over the edge, etc, etc. And with these kinds of specs, I was expecting performance comparable to that Asus ROG Ally. And certainly those expectations were met when I loaded up a good bit of 3D Mark and ran Time Spy, which spaffed out a score of 3088. Pretty much bang on what I got with that Asus ROG Ally as well. And the stress test, no worries, the Ayaneo 2S passed that with a 98.6% score. And so I thought, screw it, let's give Returnal a shot. And with this game, I had bugger all expectations, as the Asus ROG Ally really struggled. It was kind of like playing a slideshow. But on those medium detail levels, running at 1920 by 1200 pixel resolution, the game was surprisingly playable here on the Ayaneo 2S. We're talking an average frame rate hovering around 30 frames per second, with some clear drops to around 15 to 20 FPS when the action gets particularly heated. But it's still a remarkable achievement for a handheld console, and it definitely felt a lot smoother here on the Ayaneo 2S compared with that ROG Ally. I was quite happy to die over and over and over a bloody again, just surprised that it was running quite so well. Next up was Forza 5, and I started with a tasty bit of benchmarking to see what kind of scores the Ayaneo 2S could achieve. At 1920 by 1200 resolution, again on the low graphics settings, the action was creamy smooth. 60 FPS comfortably achieved, no worries at all. So I immediately bumped the graphics right up to the higher settings, and the Ayaneo 2S was like, no worries mate, f***ing bring it on. The result was 55 frames per second average, still strong and stable and smoother than a buttered up Barry White. And so I kept the graphics settings on high while I literally smashed my way through various races and challenges. And you know what, I didn't see a single drop in that frame rate, certainly nothing that my knackered old peepers picked up on. Even with a solid hour of gaming, that action just stayed silky smooth throughout. Those bright poppy visuals looked absolutely stunning on that 7-inch IPS display. And then once I'd had my fill of destroying every single wall and building in this entire frickin' town, I then decided to get a hearty bit of Doom Eternal on the go. At first I tried playing with the Ultra Nightmare settings with ray tracing enabled, and unfortunately the gameplay averaged around 15 frames per second. It felt very sluggish indeed, certainly not the experience you want from Doom. And so I knocked off that ray tracing and that sorted it immediately. From there on out it was a fluid 60 FPS experience. And again, even when gaming for a good couple of hours, no issues whatsoever, no sudden drops in that frame rate, the action stayed stable. Now the cooling system has also been upgraded for the Ayaneo 2S, so as well as a high-speed fan, you've got 3 copper tubes, a whole bunch of graphene action and larger vents. And the fan certainly gets pretty bloody loud when it's maxed out, desperately spaffing out all of that hot air as fast as possible, but it seems to cope really well. Even with the likes of Returnal, I didn't see any throttling when I was gaming for a good wee while. Apparently those triggers have been improved for the Ayaneo 2S, they're a bit smoother now. I honestly can't really notice the difference, to be honest. And that's fine because the controls on the Ayaneo 2 were already excellent, well suited to any kind of gaming that you might be into. There's no touchpad here on the Ayaneo 2S unlike the Steam Deck, but at least you've got that touchscreen control if you need it. And overall I found that the Ayaneo 2S was very comfortable to clutch and to game on for extended periods. You've also got an HD linear motor which offers some pretty good vibrations when things get frantic. And you've got full Wi-Fi 6E support, so I had no issues with getting online. As for the battery tech, well, the 4350 mAh capacity cell from the Ayaneo 2 has been upgraded to a 5025 mAh effort here on the Ayaneo 2S. Not that it makes a massive amount of difference because as soon as you load up a AAA title, you'll get less than 2 hours of battery life from a full charge before the thing's dead as out. Of course that is with the performance maxed out. If you have it on more the balanced mode, you'll tend to get more like 3 hours of use out of a full charge, so if you're playing a more basic indie title, something like that, you'll be golden for a reasonably long commute. And that right there, my lovelies, in a delicious wee nutshell, is the Ayaneo 2S. Certainly one of the beefiest gaming handhelds that I've tested out. Even gives the Asus ROG Ally a good run for its money as far as sheer grunt goes. It'll be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Have you pre-ordered your Ayaneo 2S? Are you tempted to? And what other handheld gamers are you busy rocking at the moment? Please do poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a really wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you!